The first time I watched Howl's Moving Castle, I was mesmerized by the world's vivid beauty. Lush hills, sputtering engines, magic stitched to everyday life. Its characters felt genuine, the stakes high yet never overwrought. When the credits rolled, I wasn't disappointed, so much as I was intrigued. But I couldn't quite name it. What lingered was a strange, glowing idea of home. Many viewers shelved the movie as a simple love story. Wizard meets hatmaker, curses lift, and hearts flutter. Yet after several rewatches, and guided by Miyazaki's own remarks, I'm convinced it reaches for something far broader. Romance is indeed present, the blushes, the playful banter, the famous hair dye tantrum, the final kiss, but it is only one beam in a larger architecture. Miyazaki, unsettled by the Iraq War, set out to craft, quote, a story about the blessedness of everyday life, end quote. A moving sanctuary amid violence. Howl's Moving Castle, then, instead of being a mere romantic tale, is a meditation on home. How we hide from it, how we build it, and how we keep it alive through drop disguises, shared chores, and the discovery that stability flows from consistent acts of service rather than grand gestures of passion.
At first glance, the film all but begs you to read it as a grand romance. 3 elements fuel that expectation. First, the curse. Sophie's age melts away in Howl's presence, an eye-catching metaphor for love's power to rejuvenate. Second, the wizard's theatrics. He sweeps her away over the rooftops on their very first meeting, and later darkens the sky with shape-shifting wings to defend her city. Even later, he throws a childish fit when his hair dye goes wrong. These are classic swoon and comedy beats. And third, the score swells into full bloom each time their eyes lock. Yet, upon a closer listen, it becomes clear that the melody most frequently returned to is not the couple's motif, but the castle's. A lilting waltz that drifts through shots of cracked eggs, clattering pans, and the nightly stoking of Calcifer's flame. The camera, so to speak, gives more real estate to Sophie sweeping soot into buckets than to on-screen embraces. Even the seemingly climactic "I love you" is tucked inside a crisis. Sophie murmurs it while bracing a collapsing beam. The confession is folded into household repair, not framed as a storybook finale. Cinematically, romance motivates spectacle in the film, but it doesn't anchor the narrative. Notice how many of Howl's most dramatic rescues occur outdoors or in midair, places that feel untethered. Homemaking scenes, by contrast, stay indoors, grounded, repetitive, with slow panning shots across kettle steam or the rhythmic scuff of broom bristles. These domestic scenes are where the film dwells, quietly instructing the viewer that commitment is measured in minutes, not fireworks. Miyazaki himself nudges us away from a purely romantic reading. When asked about his intent, he said the film was meant to honor, quote, the blessedness of everyday life, end quote, an idea that requires more than mere flirtation. Romance may explain why Howl rushes to the warfront, but it cannot explain the lingering focus on Sophie patching sleeves, or on Calcifer begrudgingly cooking breakfast. Those quieter moments illustrate a subtler thesis. Homes are sustained through small, repetitive acts of care. Love is real, yes, but in this story, it is upheld by scrubbed floors, warm tea, and the steadfast resolve to stay, even when every other glamour has faded. Howl's magic door can swing open onto 4 different towns. The dial clicks, green, red, blue, and black, and with each color, a new street, a new alias, a new exit. At first glance, the gimmick seems like boundless freedom, but upon a closer look, it is a cartography of retreat. Every hue grants an escape clause, a promise that Howl can slip the net of accountability before it knots tight. The castle, patched from boilers, gantries, and stovepipes, lurches forward like a runaway thought, mirroring its master's reluctance to settle. Mobility, for Howl, doubles as camouflage. By never choosing one threshold, he never has to tend what lies beyond it. The leaking roof, the empty larder, the fragile heart. This refusal sits at odds with the older meta-narrative many stories once affirmed, one of life reaching its fullness only by yielding to commitment, marriage, village, guild, or even family, and accepting the labors that commitment demands. Contemporary Western films often flip that script, crowning perpetual self-reinvention as the highest good. Howl's Moving Castle quietly resists this trend. It positions endless choice as a form of exile, and presents rooted service as the road back to wholeness. In that sense, Miyazaki is not merely telling a fairy tale. He is conversing with a lineage of stories that insist flourishing depends on belonging somewhere particular. Enter Sophie. Cursed into old age in a single night, she loses every door she once trusted. The family shop, familiar mirror, a youthful face. Stripped of easy exits, she walks into the moving house and does something radical for our era. She stays. Her remedy is not a prince's kiss or a motivational mantra, but unglamorous labor. She rolls up sleeves that now sag on her aged arms and scrubs decades of grease from the hearth. Service becomes her spell. With each pan scoured and every cobweb swept, the castle brightens. And so does she. The lens lingers on soot lifting from walls as her posture straightens. Belonging, it turns out, comes through repetitive acts of service. Read this against a larger cultural backdrop, and Sophie's path feels almost subversive. Modern scripts preach, find yourself, then the world will adjust. Howl's Moving Castle offers an older logic, one of give yourself, and in the giving you will be found. The moment society denies Sophie a place, her body mirrors the exile, for youth returns only when she creates a place worth returning to. Proof in action that refuge is built, not discovered. Identity ripens inside community, and community is formed around shared work. Seen this way, Howl and Sophie offer competing answers to a universal puzzle. Will flourishing come through perpetual flight or through a faithful presence? Sophie's staying begins to unmask Howl's running. The film's tension then is not primarily romance versus war. It is instead about endless escape versus stable dwelling. The camera keeps asking, will Howl cease fleeing long enough to join the household Sophie is making? Will the man of many doors accept one address? The answer, and the cost in surrendered illusion, sets the stakes for everything that follows.
While I was drafting this video, I kept replaying a short clip in which Hayao Miyazaki muses on the eventual end of the studio. The moment is disarmingly casual. He leans back and almost sighs and admits that studios, like seasons, eventually close their doors. At first, his tone drifts towards melancholy, an artist contemplating the sunset of a lifelong labor, until he smiles and shrugs and says, Studio Ghibli was just a name I lifted from an airplane. It's only a name. In that aside, he quietly pivots the entire conversation. The brand matters far less than the work that it fulfilled, and even less than the people who filled the work with their hearts. What continues on is not a corporate label, nor the merchandise that it bears, but the imaginative refuge the studio built for audiences scattered across the globe. A name can be archived, but the shelter it signified, that keeps breathing wherever the stories are told. The same truth threads through Howl's Moving Castle. The title promotes an eccentric structure, yet the film's heartbeat is never locked inside brick, metal, or clever machinery. It lives in the hiss of frying eggs, in the quarrels that soften into laughter, in the way a shy girl's steady work warms a vain wizard's frightened heart. The castle is captivating because it's a safeguard. It protects those moments. Its clatter and wheeze merely frame the real action of tenderness and toil. Like Ghibli itself, the building is only a vessel. Charming? Yeah. But ultimately it's provisional. The magic belongs to the people inside, and it travels with them when the walls fall. Shots linger on ordinary rituals, sweeping soot, splitting wood, sharing breakfast, because that's where home is practiced. It's not purchased. The place dazzles, but the hearts that inhabit it choose daily acts of care, and that's what makes it worth watching. If Miyazaki's blueprint teaches that walls are only the scaffolding for relationships, the film's midpoint puts that thesis to the test. One stormy night, the castle, already a patchwork of scrap, finally gives way. Hours earlier, it glittered with Howl's projections. Now gears lie scattered in the snow, and Sophie's abandoned hat shop tilts among the wreckage. The collapse feels sudden, yet narratively it is an event that was long overdue. Destruction, however, does something renovation never could. It strips away excuses. With nowhere left to hide, Howl returns to the rubble instead of fleeing to another colored door. It is the first time we see him kneel beside Sophie, not as a flamboyant savior, but as a fellow tradesman. Shoulders dusted white, hair flowing in the wind, and hands steady. In that posture, he finally comes home. He surrenders the one thing he has hoarded since childhood, and that's his heart. Not as a romantic keepsake, but as structural timber for the household they are about to rebuild. By entrusting that fragile core to Sophie, he is safeguarding the hearth that will warm them all. The gesture shifts from orbit to residence. Hal starts hammering boards, sealing leaks, lifting beams shoulder to shoulder with the very people he once kept at arm's length. What remains after the collapse is not rubble, but raw material for honesty. Sophie admits longing, Calcifer, freed from his contract, chooses to stay, and Hal? His heart is restored, and he volunteers to anchor the magic to their shared future. When they rebuild, they salvage only what love can carry: a compact hole, a sunlit garden deck, and a single shared door with wide enough frames for everyone. The structure shrinks, but the household expands. The sequence offers a blueprint within the blueprint. Confession precedes construction, and participation seals belonging. Hal and Sophie do not earn home by falling in love, they earn it by lowering defenses, passing each other breakable pieces. Things like their heart, or their youth, or their self-worth. And then they build it together. Their romance sits inside that larger commitment, not above it, proving that home begins the moment pretense ends, and continues only when every member pitches in. Every time I watch the show again, it opens a new door for me. In college, I saw Hal's terror of responsibility and felt my own dread of adulthood. During a season of constant relocation, the castle's wandering legs mirrored my hunger for roots. Recently married and expecting my first child, I noticed something new. Those color-coded doors no longer point to distant towns, they point to the people beside me. My wife is now the doorway I walk through each evening, the space where I am recognized without facade. Soon another door will swing open in the form of my daughter, and I can already feel the tug of that threshold. Awe, delight, and honestly fear. Like Hal and Sophie, I marvel at the home that is forming around me and tremble at the weight of it. What if I can't keep the hearth warm? What if the roof leaks just when she arrives? And yet her kindness steadies me. My wife's patient love mirrors Sophie's setting breakfast on the table, even after an emotional storm. Ordinary gestures turning uncertainty into welcoming. Her steadiness whispers that I don't have to perfect the house before my daughter enters it. I only have to keep showing up with a fullness of heart and a broom in hand. So the film's question sharpens. Which door am I now choosing as home? The answer is no longer geographic, it is relational. I hear it in the small heartbeat on an ultrasound speaker, in the soft click of a light switched on so I won't stub my toe. Vulnerability, it turns out, is still the final architecture, only now it spans 3 hearts instead of 2. The scene reframes home as exposure, letting someone see the rooms you normally lock. It confronts me with gentle urgency. Which doors have I color-coded for escape? Which rooms remain untouched by the trust of my family? The film doesn't moralize it, it just merely holds the door open and waits for you. By the last frame, the castle is still moving. That choice by Miyazaki feels like an invitation. Stability, the film whispers, has nothing to do with standing still and everything to do with carrying a steady heart wherever you go. Howl may recolor his hair, Sophie may shift between ages, the whole may sprout fresh wings next spring. But the sinner no longer wobbles, because the sinner is no longer hidden. It is a reclaimed heart, a fire that burns because it chooses to. Having heard all of this, I now extend an invitation to you. Go build your own castle, and keep it warm. If you haven't found your people yet, promise yourself you'll open at least one door wider this week. Invite someone in, even if the room isn't spotless. If you already share a roof with the ones you love, act of service you can do for them today. Sweep a floor without being asked. Wash the dishes. Yes, even the ones that aren't yours. Listen all the way to the end of their stories. Light the hearth before a chill sets in. A home like Calcifer's flame flares brighter when everyone feeds it. When the credits fade, consider the shifting doors in your life. How many are you only using to escape? How many swing open for community? How long has it been since you tended the hearth rather than maintain a false outward appearance to hide your problems and insecurities? Howl's Moving Castle insists that belonging is a verb. It is honesty over image, presence over flight, people over place. It's a moving sanctuary that stays alight because its guardians refuse to let the fire die. Wherever your next doorway opens, build and keep building. Build a castle worthy of the hearts inside of it. And if you already have such a place, serve it until your care becomes the strongest stone in its walls. May your home be the kind that never misplaces its heart, even if it never stops moving.